Second myth is that internal auditors are corporate policemen.
Myth, yeah. Corporate
Yes,
policemen,
yeah, definitely not true. So, do I look like a policeman to you?
They
No,
wear
right?
shorts to work.
No, not at all. So I think a lot of people might have gotten this impression because the idea of an auditor is always to be like checking on stuff and finding faults. Yeah. So in fact I used to think that way too because like I was sharing, I was actually a temp in a local financial institution. So and the department behind the finance department was actually the internal audit department. So I'm not sure whether it was true or not, but my boss will always tell me, right, hey, you don't serve the net, yeah. You don't keep talking to your colleagues, yeah, because the internal auditors are always looking at you. So yeah, be alert at work because if not, yeah, you get into a lot of trouble. Yeah. So for a period of time, I was actually quite convinced that internal auditors are corporate policemen, but definitely not true. So because like what I mentioned, we are really business partners at heart, and what we really do is to provide assurance to the business that they are doing things the right way and they have not actually overlooked key risks and controls. And that is why we are also often called the third line of defense, because we help to point out blind spots that management do not see. Yeah. And in fact in the past, right, internal audit, right, internal auditors used to be focused on a lot of assurance work. But these days, internal auditors have also branched out to more advisory work. For example, we might be called upon by management at the start of an acquisition of a new entity to look at the controls of a new entity and make recommendations. Or we might also be asked to conduct workshops, control self-assessment workshops to help employees understand the importance of controls and assess the effectiveness of the controls, or even identify missing controls, or even help management with a fraud investigation. So definitely we are not policemen, but rather we are really advisors to the business. Yep.
So I'm just curious, okay, have you encountered any frauds in your actual real world working experience as an external or internal auditor?
Definitely. So, in audit world, right, F word is a dirty word, and F stands for fraud. So we don't like to hear the word fraud because when you talk about fraud, right, it means you have a lot of work cut out for you. So yes, definitely I've got my fair share of investigations, and uncovering I wouldn't say material fraud, but more of like but fraud is still fraud. So even though they might not be material, the fact that you are trying to, take benefits away for yourself, so that is considered a fraud already. So yes, definitely had my fair share of uncovering and investigating fraud.
So when you mention controls is to make sure that such fraud case or such shortchanging of the business is less likely to happen.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah, yep.
And if it ever happens, then you guys will have to put on the policeman uniform. If it ever happens, right?
Yeah, but I do have to qualify that fraud investigation is a very niche area that internal auditors, internal auditors may not be qualified, are not qualified to do it because you actually need experience in doing it. That's why a lot of fraud investigators, they come from enforcement backgrounds. The investigators that I know, they were either because I work in a US MNC, so there were people from the FBI or the US police department, or even people who are law trained, because they need all this. They need to be aware of the laws and whatnot, how to interview suspects, and that's why if we encounter a fraud case, the internal auditors don't really investigate, but rather they support the investigation.